Hi, this is Max with The Way of the Elbow Rolfing. I'd like to follow up on some of the ideas that I've been treating in the last videos. And specifically, I would like to pick up on the two images of the river and also of the apple tree as analogies with the body, and also an attempt to illustrate the way in which Rolfing conceives of the body, and also the way in which Rolfing conceives of proper therapy. Specifically in this video, I would like to point out one further way in which those analogies are helpful, and how they help us to illuminate the nature of our work. Then I would also like to pick up on a way in which they can be misleading, or that those analogies fall short of what we're truly trying to accomplish. One question that I'm often posed with as a Rolfer is how is Rolfing different than any other kind of treatment? How is Rolfing different than physical therapy or chiropractic or surgery or massage, etc.? And there are many ways to answer a question like that, but one way that I can answer the question is by way of those two analogies. In ordinary therapy, we have to basically wait for something to go wrong before we can treat it. Before a symptom appears, there's nothing to speak of. Rolfing, though, if I'm doing my job and we're doing our job together, if we're in good communication, then we have the possibility of addressing causes before they trickle down, so to speak, and precipitate out into the corporal body. We have the possibility of addressing causes before they become symptoms or before they become effects. I would like to show by analogy. Suppose that one sort of treatment had to basically do some kind of measurement or analysis of the water by the time it reached the mouth of the river, so all the way at the bottom of the river. That's one approach. Another approach is, suppose some sort of intervention could be made higher up on the mountain, so to speak. Similarly, it's one thing to harvest the apples in the fall, but suppose that we had some say in how the apples were ripening and maturing and developing over the course of the year and through the seasons. Those would be two different approaches, right? And I think it will be very clear that the one which is able to have some say in the process, able to address the process and not merely the product of that process, this sort of approach will have much more, and also much deeper, and also much more enduring influence on the subject that it's trying to address or working together with. Now, by analogy, or those are analogies, obviously, and the question is, well, what do those say about what is our actual subject, which is the body? Well, in our own bodies, we often notice, for example, places of tension or discomfort or pain, even, or any kind of dis-ease. We often notice those places of tension. What we often overlook, what we don't notice, is the tightening that is in fact the cause of that tension. So tension doesn't explain itself. It's rather, tension is a kind of sign which points to, if we think of tension again as a sort of result or a product, it doesn't explain itself. It always has an explanation in a process, in a habit of tightening, right? So we have characteristic. Each of us has, in some way, sort of signature ways in which we go around the world, and obviously tightening is inevitable, but most of the time the tightening comes and goes. But we also, I think everyone is familiar with the experience of that tightening. It begins to accumulate, and the tightening accumulates and becomes a lasting tension, chronic tension. In the Rolfing, we have basically two fronts that we're working on. One of them is addressing the tension once it's already accumulated, but always we have an eye to from where is it accumulating in the first place. And this again would be the tightening, or the habits of movement that are causing strain on the body. And so I hope that it's clear how this is it's a parallel with the images of on one side the river and the tree, and then on the other side the body, that in some way I hope that in some way those images of the tree and the river can again help to illustrate the way in which Rolfing therapy tries to approach the body as the living body, and not merely the body as a material object, a chunk of stuff. I would, though, again, in a similar way to the last video, I would like to specifically address the way in which those analogies, they fall short of the reality in this case. And that's specifically because if we think back to the tree and also the river, neither the tree nor the river is changing itself. This is categorically different in the case of our own work. There's in fact gradients here that we could start to think of, and there's really there's no limit to how deep a person could go in this. So I'll just mention in passing that if we compare the lawnmower, which is a mechanical, non-living object, to the apple tree, which is a living thing, to the human being, we will see gradients of what we might call agency, or reflexive agency back upon oneself. So I'll try to say what I mean. The lawnmower, it totally depends on a mechanic to put it together, to first create the parts and then assemble the parts. That's one extreme. In the middle you have an apple tree, which is it bears the formative process which the lawnmower depended to receive from without, from the mechanic. The apple tree bears the formative process from inside of itself, and so it has a sort of an agency that's kind of a stretching that term, but it's an agency that works upon its own form. This is in the middle. It's an intermediate stage. If we go to the human being, then it's clear that we have an even further intensification of this self-active agency, right? Because we can take initiative and influence the course of our own development. Again, we would have to really do some stretching and acrobatics and try to contort our imaginations to picture a river that could change its own course, by making a resolution to change its own course, which we probably wouldn't call that a river anymore. So I hope something that I said today helps to continues our project of just trying to understand what this is all about, trying to have a clearer, more comprehensive picture. So again, this is Max from The Way of the Elbow, and I thank you for your time, and until next time, I wish you the very best.